The late 90s was a period of change for Simpsons video games, and it all started with Fox Interactive releasing the Simpsons Cartoon Studio back in 1996. Cartoon Studio was a bit awkward and limited, but they made something that Simpsons fans would very much want, a way to make their own Simpsons cartoons. Cartoon Studio was the first of 2 pieces of PC software that Fox Interactive published for The Simpsons. Cartoon Studio was about letting people make their own Simpsons cartoons, so now that that's been covered, what else would a Simpsons fan want to do? Well, it's something the Simpsons games have always been chasing, and the same thing that future games like Hit and Run have been praised for, and that's a way to truly explore Springfield. The best licensed games are the ones that successfully make it feel like you're in the world itself, to see well-known locations and actually get to interact with them in some way. Say what you want about Bart vs the Space Mutants, but that first level did take place in Springfield, and you got to see locations like the Kwik-E-Mart, and you could even prank call Moe. Fox Interactive set out to fulfill that wish for fans, but what happens when you want to make something that lets you explore famous locations from The Simpsons, but you don't want to make a full video game and make something that's more interactive? Well, you get the game we're looking at today, Virtual Springfield. Virtual Springfield released in September 1997 and was available for Windows 95 and Mac. We have another new developer, this time with Digital Evolution being the people behind Virtual Springfield. If you've never heard of Digital Evolution, it's because they're not actually a video game developer, and Virtual Springfield was the only game they were ever credited in making. It's fairer to say that Virtual Springfield was actually developed by a company called Vortex Media Arts. You may not have heard of them either, as they were a combination of 2 different companies merging in 1993, one company with some experience with video game development and the other company being an animation studio. They developed 3 games in total, which were all interactive PC software with a focus of using proper animations in their games. It was during 1994 that Fox Interactive contracted Vortex Media Arts to develop Virtual Springfield. Unfortunately, the developer ran out of money before Virtual Springfield could be finished, and Vortex Media Arts became no more. Out of nowhere, a company called Digital Evolution picked up the contract, hired the original developers from Vortex, and paid out of their own pocket to finish the game. I'm not sure I can fully describe what Digital Evolution is, so let me read their description from the 1996 version of their website. Digital Evolution's mission is to apply core experience and ongoing development teams to content production, interface design, and software creation for all digital delivery platforms. In English, they're an LA-based tech company who focus on developing web technology and websites. They were pretty successful during the 90s, working with companies like IBM, Lexus, Disney, and of course Fox Interactive. Digital Evolution rebranded in 2005 as SOA, then years later as Arcana in 2015, who were then acquired by Rogueway Software, who were then bought by Perforce in 2019. They're still going strong today within the tech industry, making their brief stint into video game development to help finish Virtual Springfield simply an odd moment in their history. Digital Evolution taking over after Vortex Media Arts went under likely caused a delay to Virtual Springfield. Fox Interactive advertised the game with Cartoon Studio in July 1996, and 3 years is a really long time to develop a game like this in the 90s. For reference, Super Mario 64 took less than 2 years to make, 1 year less than Virtual Springfield. One of the key people who worked on Virtual Springfield was a man called Morgan Rorty, who got a job at another company as part of Vortex shutting down, but worked weekends in order to help finish the game. The company who hired him was of course EA, and he managed to work through the ranks as a producer on games like 007 Nightfire, The Herbs, and Spore. He eventually became the COO of Maxis, the company behind The Sims, which would be extremely impressive if it didn't mean that he was running the company when the reboot of SimCity released in 2013. SimCity famously had a disastrous launch, with numerous technical issues, being unplayable in many ways, and it all led to the studio shutting down in 2015. I don't know how this happened, but between Morgan Rorty and Don Matrick, that's now 2 people who were involved in the Simpsons video games in the early 90s, who then went on to run companies that had historically bad video game launches in 2013. Virtual Springfield's biggest claim to fame is that it inspired the creation of a replica of the Simpsons home to be built in Nevada. It was while working on Virtual Springfield that Fox had the idea to build the house, and in 1997 they gave the house away as part of a competition. I've read online that the house was built in order to promote Virtual Springfield, but I think that's a little bit backwards. It certainly seems to have been inspired by the game, but the house appears to be a marketing stunt by Fox to boost the popularity of the Simpsons brand, as by 1997 the show was much less popular than it was back in the early 90s. Virtual Springfield appears to be part of this same campaign to push The Simpsons as a brand, a campaign that included the game, new VHS tapes being released, and giving away The Simpsons House to a fan. Fox Interactive had a pretty good start with Cartoon Studio, although that game was unfortunately never going to live up to the promise of being able to make actual Simpsons episodes. Virtual Springfield, on the other hand, I find much more exciting. A program focused on just experiencing Springfield and exploring the Simpsons world sounds perfect and something much more achievable. Let's jump into the game and see if Virtual Springfield can deliver on something that every Simpsons fans wanted and to this day is something we still want. I'm going to start with the box itself and all the different releases of Virtual Springfield. When looking at Cartoon Studio, I got a bit lost going through all the different versions I could find, but luckily Virtual Springfield releases aren't as messy. It starts with a big box release that has a plastic cover, with the characters printed on top to create depth between them and Springfield itself. It's a very similar release to Cartoon Studio's original release, which did the same thing. It's a pretty cool effect this, but I think they leaned into this idea a bit too hard. For Cartoon Studio, Bart was the focal point of the artwork, and the plastic cover gave a bit of separation, in a nice but somewhat subtle way. Virtual Springfield doesn't work as well, especially when the virtual part of the logo isn't filled in. The CD case is another cardboard sleeve, with the hard white plastic to hold in the disc itself. The artwork is all about Homer's pink donuts, with a pink donut on the front, everything being pink, and Homer eating a donut and saying, CD-ROM. There's an alternative line for Homer if you remove the manual, where he says Virtual Springfields instead. I'm not a big fan of this artwork. It feels generic and far too specific to Homer when the game is about Springfield as a whole. Any pink donut artwork always feels a bit too corporate to me anyway. Yes, Homer did like donuts in the show, and from time to time they would be pink with sprinkles, but these specific pink donuts feel like they were created for the marketing and product lines rather than something concrete from the show. They needed something they could slap on slippers and t-shirts, so they picked the pink donuts as they stood out. It makes the pink donuts a bit of a poor fit for Virtual Springfield. Although it is somewhat refreshing to see Bart take a backseat to Homer for the first time in any of the Simpsons video games. There was an alternative version of this release, which included a copy of the book The Simpsons, a complete guide to our favourite family. I sadly can't spend much time on this book, but I had this when I was younger and it's amazing. It's filled with facts and it covered every episode of the show. Back when people didn't have the internet or the DVD box sets, this type of book was the perfect thing for a Simpsons fan, and it was a great choice to include it with Virtual Springfield. Like Cartoon Studio, they released a more traditional cardboard box version of the game as well. I may have my issues with the original release with the plastic cover and use of donuts, but the actual artwork for the game is perfect. Simpsons video games as a whole have really great box art. If I had to pick my favourite so far, I would go with Bart vs. the Space Mutants. With Virtual Springfield though, I have a new favourite. We finally moved past the era where Bart had to be front and centre, and it allows us both to see more characters and Springfield itself. What I love about this cover is that it both sells the premise of the game very easily, with all the characters looking at Springfield, and you can also spend ages going through all the small details they added. There's the Kwik-E-Mart with Apu shooting at Snake after he's robbed the store, Barney running away from Moe's, and then there's multiple recognisable locations like Krusty Burger, the school, Barney's Boulderama, and the Jebediah Springfield statue. I never owned Virtual Springfield when I was younger, but I really wanted to play this game, and it was thanks to this cover. It doesn't end there though, the back is also kind of exciting as well. It's a pretty standard design for the back of a game, but look at these screenshots. The idea of playing this game and getting to see all these Simpsons animations on your PC is on another level for a kid. I'm sure some people felt this way with Cartoon Studio and got really excited by the idea, but it never felt that way with me. Virtual Springfield, though, is a game that fully presents itself as a must-play for any fans of The Simpsons just based on this box. The CD case is a plastic jewel case rather than a cardboard one, and they've put Homer eating a donut on the front of the case this time. My guess to why they changed it is because Homer was on the cover of the manual for the original release, and now that the manual is being used as the cover for this one, they decided to just keep the original manual cover rather than updating it. If we jump over to the Australian version of the game, we can see the EA logo on the back of the box in the bottom left corner. Like with Cartoon Studio, EA distributed Virtual Springfield in Australia. That's mostly it for Virtual Springfield releases. I found what looks like a standalone small CD case release, but it doesn't seem to be as common as the ones I could find for Cartoon Studio. It doesn't even have a back cover, which probably means it was bundled or given away, rather than being sold separately. Virtual Springfield can't really make any claims to being educational, where Cartoon Studio just about can, meaning I don't think there was as many opportunities to re-release Virtual Springfield. As always, please let me know if you know of any more releases of the game, but let's move on and get the disc inside the PC. Like with Cartoon Studio, I'm back with using a Windows 98 emulator for Virtual Springfield. I think it is possible to play this on modern PCs if you have the disc from what I've read online, but I got stuck trying to install the game as it said I didn't have enough room on my PC. It seems possible to do, but I already had the Windows 98 emulator set up, so it was easier to play it on what I know is an officially supported OS. Once again, you need to install the game, and unlike Cartoon Studio, we have a menu with unique artwork. Booting up the disk gives us this box with options to play, install, uninstall, and exit, and we can see Bart in a virtual reality machine using both VR goggles and gloves. How did we end up with two Simpsons video games in the 90s that featured Bart going into virtual reality? Anyway, the artwork does feel a little bit off. It doesn't look like official artwork, and I think Bart looks a little chubby as well. I appreciate the effort though, and unique Simpsons artwork is always going to be a plus for Simpsons video games, even when the art isn't quite right. Having Homer represent each of the options is a nice touch. We're finally starting to see Homer become a more important part of the games. I believe the uninstall icon here was taken from the Season 3 episode Homer at the Bat. There's actually not much to install in the game itself. It installed very quickly with very simple loading screens. With the game all installed and all the releases covered, it's time to finally start playing the game. Virtual Springfield starts with the standard company logos, which includes the logos for both Vortex Media Art and Digital Evolution, which was nice that Vortex's logo was included as well, even though they didn't exist by this point. After the logos, you step into virtual reality and are taken into Springfield.
Welcome to Springfield. I'm Troy McClure. You may remember me as town spokesman for such computer travel guides as Hats Off to Fargo and Pinch Me, I'm in Boise. Of course, we all know Springfield for its award-winning dandelions and as birthplace of the glove compartment. But that's merely scratching the surface of a place the great Calvin Coolidge once labeled a pea-sized town with lima bean-sized dreams. So warm up your clicking finger and let's explore a land the poets call Springfield, USA!
I love everything about this intro, from the effect of putting on a VR headset, to seeing the Simpsons family in the blue sky with the clouds from the intro of the show, before going into the P to reveal a 3D Springfield that the camera swoops around in, all while the Simpsons theme is playing. They then top it all off with an introduction from Troy McClure, actually voiced by Phil Hartman himself. I can't think of a better way to set the game up than this, with the remixed version of the Simpsons intro, selling the premise of the game with these overhead shots and original lines from the legendary Phil Hartman. The animation on Troy McClure is a bit off and the statue of Jebediah Springfield doesn't look quite right, but it's easy to put these problems aside as it does everything it needs to do to get a Simpsons fan excited to start playing. After Troy finishes talking, he leaves and you're free to start exploring the town. If you wait a few seconds, Troy will reappear and he will give you slightly different dialogue each time. There's actually an insane amount of variations to these lines, where Troy will keep talking about different towns that he's helped introduced.
You may remember me as town spokesman for such computer travel guides as Eeny, Meeny, Miny, Murfreesboro, and Yuma, it's seniorific. Smother me in Shreveport, and Living, Loving, and Lubbock. Duluth, it'll grow on you. And suddenly Tulsa. Fredonia, gateway to Wichita. And Fairbanks needs women. I left my soul in Sacramento, and tender lovin' Newark. Hats off to Fargo, and pinch me, I'm in Boise.
You start off in the town square and are free to go wherever you like, with no guidance from the game about where you should go. Whenever you click on the side of the screen, the camera pans to a new location where you can choose where to go next from there. I started by clicking around somewhat randomly, going down different streets of Springfield before ending up at the Springfield Elementary School. Within the school you have a couple of different classrooms to view and you can interact by clicking on things. That's the majority of the gameplay right there. You have Springfield itself that you can click to get around. The town is filled with different buildings from The Simpsons. Some of these buildings you can click on to enter, and others are just there to view from the outside. There is a little bit of gameplay that I'll talk about later, but the best way to describe Virtual Springfield is either a stripped back point and click adventure game without any real puzzles or story, or a first person exploration game. At the beginning, there is really nothing that is presented to the player as a goal, so let's not think too hard about what we should be doing and start clicking around the school. There are 4 main areas in the school. There's the hallway, and from there you can go to Mrs. Krabappel's classroom, Miss Hoover's classroom, and Skinner's office. We can't get into Principal Skinner's office yet, and there are also these 2 lockers that we're not allowed to open in the hallway. When in this hallway, there's a few different animations that we can see. 2 of them are a paper aeroplane and a basketball coming from one of the classrooms, but we can also see groundskeeper Willie wrestling a wolf from the season 4 episode Marge Gets a Job. There is also Bartman who skateboards across the screen. It's an interesting design for Bartman, with him wearing a dark blue hood and Bart's normal orange t-shirt. The more common appearance for Bartman has him in a purple hood and the light blue t-shirt. This look for Bartman was established outside of the show, when Bart was featured in places like the comic book. The implication with these colours in Virtual Springfield is that they pulled the design from the original episode that Bartman appeared in the show, the season 2 episode 3 Men in a Comic Book. Bartman didn't actually debut in this episode though. This is something I got wrong during my Bartman Meets Radioactive Man review. He was a creation for Simpsons merchandise with this Avenger of Evil design back in 1989. He's wearing a purple hood and a light blue t-shirt, which is why these became the colours for Bartman rather than the blue hood and orange t-shirt from the show. It's a minor detail, but I believe it implies that the developers of Virtual Springfield were pulling content and references from episodes of the show rather than considering the wider range of designs used for The Simpsons across all of pop culture from the 90s. Entering Mrs. Krabappel's classroom, and we see Mrs. Krabappel, Sherry and Terry, Martin, Milhouse, Bart, Nelson, and some random kid. Mrs. Krabappel isn't always present. Sometimes she's sitting behind the desk, sometimes she's standing up, and sometimes she won't be in the classroom at all. She also has different animations and dialogue depending on if she's standing or sitting down. The writing on the chalkboard will also change every time you enter the classroom, with the jokes written on the chalkboard being similar to what you see Bart writing in the opening of the show. There's 6 lines that you can see, and they rotate in a fixed order as you enter and re-enter the classroom. This might not sound like much, but this feature of rooms potentially being different each time you enter them really helps elevate the game. The first time this happens is a cool little moment, when you re-enter a room that you decided to go back to for whatever reason, only to see something completely new. The gameplay is a point and click adventure without the adventure part, which makes the game at risk at becoming boring very fast. Some people might not even be interested in this based on how little gameplay there is here. By adding this extra twist though, it makes exploring a bit more worthwhile. You're rewarded for being curious by seeing more animations and jokes, for taking the time to revisit different areas. There's certainly a trade-off with this system though, as it can mean going backwards and forwards between the same two screens just to see one extra joke, but I'll say that trade-off is worth it. It both makes exploring more interesting and makes the world feel more alive, that you are seeing these characters going about their day, which sometimes means they're there and sometimes they're not. It feels quite innovative for a point and click, and it adds an extra layer to the game that was very much needed to stop it from becoming stale. In the classroom, we have 7 different spots that we can click on to go to a separate sub-screen. There are 3 types of screens in the game. There's being in the 3D version of Springfield where you can enter buildings and move around the town. There are more standard screens when you're inside buildings and locations, and then there are zoom-in screens that give you a closer look at something. For Mrs. Krabappel's classroom, we can zoom in on 7 desks belonging to Bart, Milhouse, Martin, Nelson, Sherry, Terry, and Mrs. Krabappel's desk at the front. Each screen is filled with more things to click on, which either show you an object or plays a short animation. It's similar to the Humongous Entertainment games, where you can click around, but there will be specific objects that you can click on that don't serve any real purpose, it's just something fun to watch. In Virtual Springfield, the things that you click on do have a bit more of a purpose, as this is how you get to see references to the show and the jokes written for the game. So in Milhouse's desk, we have the Krusty walkie-talkie, a reference to the Season 3 episode Homer Defined, where clicking on it will play lines from Bart, who was planning out different pranks. There is also a photo of Milhouse dressed as Fallout Boy with Rainier Wolfcastle as a reference to the Season 7 episode Radioactive Man. This photo doesn't come from the episode though, it's original for the game and it includes an extra joke about Rainier Wolfcastle blaming Milhouse for getting 3rd degree burns. I won't be covering every reference in the game, and that's because there are so many of them. Every screen has references and jokes to find, and it's a huge compliment to the game that I can't cover everything. There's just so much to see. You can spend a surprisingly long time in each area, trying to trigger different animations and seeking out every joke and reference. On my first playthrough, I spent 20 minutes in the school, and that's only exploring 2 classrooms. There might not be much gameplay, but they make up for it by having locations be dense. As long as you're interested in The Simpsons and enjoy the references and jokes, there's plenty to see and do. Jumping over to Miss Hoover's classroom, and there's not many variations of this room, with Miss Hoover always sitting down at her desk. Oddly, it says you can click on Miss Hoover as the mouse cursor changes to a yellow hand, which means you can interact with something, but nothing happens when you click on her. The writing on the chalkboard changes when you re-enter the room, this time going through different medical conditions. The implication being that Miss Hoover has all of these conditions, as being sick is her most notable character trait. Hovering over the hamster case shows us a hand icon with a red circle that's crossed out. The same icon can be seen when hovering over the lockers and Skinner's office in the hallway. A quick look in the manual explains that this means you can't interact with this now, but you may be able to find an object later which will allow you to do so. We'll have to come back to the school later on once we learn more about all of this. Miss Hoover's classroom features Lisa, Jenny, Todd, Ralph. I think that's one of Nelson's bully friends, and then it's mostly random background characters. You can click on most of the children to have them play an animation. Most of them are very short, apart from Lisa asking Miss Hoover about the nature of God, causing Miss Hoover to press the independent fault alarm, a reference to the Season 7 episode Lisa the Vegetarian. When you click on Ralph, he'll say something stupid which will make the other kids laugh. There's 3 different lines that he can say, with different kids laughing at him each time. It was around this time that Ralph started to become a bigger part of the show, and we can see that here with Ralph saying more one-liners, and he's also on the front of the cover and on the bottom of the box. I'm biased here as I don't really like Ralph. He was fine as a side character who was more involved from time to time, but when he became a one-liner machine, I quickly got sick of him. The fact he got prominent enough to be the very first character you see and hear during the Simpsons movie is simply awful. He's not much better in Virtual Springfield. The jokes aren't great and all of them are followed by him awkwardly laughing, with the laugh being so strange and off-putting. There's only 3 zoom-in screens here. There's Miss Hoover's desk that's filled with more jokes about her depressing life and how she always gets ill. Lisa's desk has a nice reference to Mr. Bergstrom and the famous "You Are Lisa Simpsons" note from the Season 2 episode, Lisa's Substitute. Lastly, there's Ralph's desk, with the most noteworthy object being the I choose you card from the season 4 episode I Love Lisa. As there's a few locked doors in the school, we'll come back here later, but that's everything we can see for now, so let's head to a new location. I continue to randomly click around Springfield, and that led me to Moe's Bar. I'm taking you through the locations in the order I experienced them when first playing, but you can go to these places in any order you like. Springfield is pretty open, so it's up to you in what direction that you want to explore. In Moe's Bar, Moe can either be missing, be standing up behind the bar, or doing this goblin style lean forward. You may have already noticed this, but the animation is quite inconsistent. Characters look largely correct and most animations are close enough to the show, but from time to time you see things like this and they just don't look right. I'm willing to be forgiving on this though, as I wouldn't expect a 1997 PC game to be able to recreate the animation quality perfectly. I really like the overall look of the game, and can look past a few lackluster animations, even if some of them clearly needed a bit more time and polish. There are 4 characters that can appear in the bar: Barney, Larry, Sam, and I think Larry again? The second Larry could be a reference to the season 4 episode Duffless, where you can see 2 versions of Larry in the bar. As this character is wearing green and has this extra line near his mouth that Larry doesn't have, I think it's supposed to be a random generic barfly who heavily borrows from Larry's design rather than there being 2 Larrys. Weirdly, this is the only character who is in Moe's bar that never disappears. All he does is sit there and clicking on him makes him blink. There are 2 main gags to see in Moe's bar. The first is that Willy will sometimes try to enter the bar with Moe kicking him out, as Willy misread the sign for Ladies' Night as Laddie's Night. You can also see Moe getting pranked by Bart over the phone. There's a specific setup for Moe's bar where you want Barney in the bar but not Sam. This spawns a small mechanical ball machine that you can click on to make Barney ride it. Clicking on Barney again has him ride it a second time before being thrown off and returning to the bar. There's 4 zoom-in screens in Moe's bar. One of them is the Laramie cigarettes machine. There's not many jokes on this screen and you can only click on the buttons to order different types of cigarettes. The second zoom-in screen is the Love Tester machine, which you may assume is from the Love-Matic Grandpa section of the season 8 episode, The Simpsons spin-off Showcase. This episode wasn't the first appearance of this machine though, and it was most notably shown in the season 3 episode Flaming Moe's. The design for the Love Tester in this game is much closer to the design used in the Flaming Moe's episode, as it features a blue background rather than brown, and the original machine has Casanova as the second best option, where for Love-Matic Grandpa they switched it so Casanova was at the top. Virtual Springfield did come out after the Simpsons spin-off Showcase had aired, although only by a few months. I believe the Love Tester machine here is a reference to Flaming Moe's due to its design, but it's a weird coincidence that the Love Tester happened to appear in an episode again so close to Virtual Springfield's release date. You can use the Love Tester and it will randomly give you one of the matches. I spent a very long time on this trying to get the top match, but it never happened. I don't think it's possible to get this, or maybe I'm just not the stud I thought I was, which is a shame as it'd be really nice to get the top option as you can see it, even if it's a bit hidden by the UI. The next zoom-in screen is behind the bar, where you can find Moe's hidden shotgun and knife, and you can even make yourself a Flaming Moe. In one of the boxes there's a key that is labelled Spanky. This is the first inventory item we've found so far, and it's going to get added to our collect menu. Those who know The Simpsons well will already know what this key is for, but I'm going to pretend that I have no idea and let's carry on exploring Moe's a bit more. The last zoom-in screen is a bit more hidden. You can find it by clicking on the drinks case behind the bar to reveal a secret room. Moe walks in and stands in the middle, and clicking on the boxes reveals pandas, which Moe will act all suspicious about. It's a funny reference to the season 5 episode Cape Fear, but this panda on the left appears to be dead, which is a bit grim. This room is solely for this one joke, which, considering this room is a bit hidden, I would have liked there to be a few more things to see. Let's head to the next location. This time we're visiting the library, which is behind Moe's. It's in the library where I found the very first Springfield community card. Hidden across Springfield are these cards, where if you spot one, you can click on it to pick it up, and each card has a character on it from the show. There are 74 to collect, so you really need to hunt these cards down to get a complete set. I'll talk about these cards more later. The main thing to note here is that we now have a goal. So far this game has just been clicking on things to view jokes, but now we have something to aim for. Any screen could have a hidden card, so we definitely need to keep an eye out for them. It's not much gameplay wise, but like the different variations that each screen and location can have, it's another layer to the game that's included to help it be a bit more engaging. The library has one main screen which doesn't have any variations. Edna makes a joke about her working in the library, Lisa is studying and pulls this face, and Hans Moleman is reading books. If you click on Moleman enough times, he causes the bookcases to collapse on him, which is excellent to see. For the books, there's 3 that we can click on: Famous Springfieldian Nights, Watch Out Utica, The Proud History of Springfield, and Womp, The History of Whacking Day. These are all great books, with Famous Springfieldian Nights showing off some of the side characters, The History of Springfield showing images of some of the more iconic locations being built, and The History of Whacking Day putting all kinds of references from the Season 4 episode Whacking Day. The video collection has 3 videos you can watch. 2 of them are Ken Brockman narrating over some footage. One is a war, and the other is about softball from the Season 3 episode Homer at the Bat. The last video is called Calling All Quakers, and it goes like this.
Have it your way, baby.
On face value, it doesn't make much sense. If it's only a joke about him dropping the woman, then that's a pretty weak joke. This video is actually a pretty great reference, because in the Season 3 episode Homer Alone, we hear Troy McClure say this.
As I said to Dolores Montenegro in Calling All Quakers, have it your way, baby.
What we are seeing in Virtual Springfield is them creating the film that Troy quoted in the show. We never see Calling All Quakers in the episode itself, so the game has taken the opportunity to show us this scene instead. It's a pretty amazing reference, and highlights how the references and writing works in Virtual Springfield. We get very clear direct references throughout, which are enjoyable, but they also build around the world of The Simpsons and create their own jokes based on specific elements rather than only recreating jokes from the show. The majority of people won't recognise Calling All Quakers, especially in 1997 when streaming or the DVD box sets didn't exist, so it's a very easy reference to miss. The fact that it's here though means they were really targeting hardcore fans of the show, and you're rewarded for knowing so much about it with these type of scenes. I really love this approach, and it makes the game feel like an extension of the show rather than just a pure rehash of jokes from different episodes. The 3 locations we've explored so far have all been close together, which means it's time to find somewhere new. It's time to explore Springfield a bit more. Springfield itself is in 3D, where you can click to head to specific fixed points in the town. Characters will appear in front of you, walking past and throwing out a random comment. The animations that you see here are somewhat randomized, including cars that can drive by. It was a risky move having a 3D world with 2D animations placed on top of it. Future Simpsons games struggle to find a good way to represent Springfield in 3D, and other licensed games experience the same problem of how do you properly translate a 2D cartoon into a 3D playable space. This game does look a bit dated, but overall I think it's an excellent representation of The Simpsons. The 3D assets have thick black lines on them to make them look more cartoonish, but the lines aren't too thick and there's the right amount of detail to everything. There is still a bit of jagginess to some of these lines though, which isn't helped by playing on a modern PC. Virtual Springfield does have an advantage that other 3D Simpsons games don't have, and that's you can't move the camera in any direction. The camera moves as you transition to each spot, but once you stop, you're fixed in place and all the 2D animations can play out directly in front of you without you moving. Having the camera be fixed here allows the 3D parts of the scene to look more 2D and have them fit in more with the character animations. The 3D art looks good for the buildings, streets and other objects, although things that need to look like a person don't hold up as well, like what we saw at the start of the game with the statue. Overall though, they were able to take advantage of it being a more stripped back gameplay experience to allow it to much better match the show by using this unique mix of 2D and 3D animation. For the first attempt at recreating Springfield in 3D, it's pretty successful. Taking a 3D world and combining it with 2D animations makes this one of the better looking Simpsons games, and arguably the closest they got to it looking like the show until tapped out in 2012. After the library, I found the Stonecutters Temple but wasn't allowed to enter.
You must first obtain the secret ring.
We'll come back here later. Instead, let's visit the Aztec Theatre. The Aztec Theatre shows a group of residents of Springfield watching a McBain movie. There's really very little here to see. The film is just McBain shooting people with his gun and cycling through a few different one-liners. You can click on Krusty to trigger him annoying rain near Wharf Castle, causing Krusty to get beaten up. There's a box of gummy bears you can click on, which allows you to flick gummy bears at different characters. You can also click on the aisle to see a weird looking Ralph running by, as well as a movie attendant and Skinner having a war flashback. The Aztec Theatre is a bit of a letdown. There's only one movie that plays, there's no variations of this screen, and there's no zoom in screens to check out. It's one of the weakest locations in the game, and with it being a movie theatre, it feels like the perfect place to have different mini-films to watch. Moving quickly on, we next jump to the town hall, which is back over near the town square where we started. This screen shows off the mayor's office, with Quimby sitting at his desk. There's two variations of Quimby you can see, just him by himself, and him with his bodyguard standing behind him. You can click on Quimby's donation pop to bribe him, which triggers some voice lines from Quimby. You can also click on the phone to hear him talk to either Wiggum, Marge, or Homer. If you click on the door on the right, you will hear a sound effect which is meant to be a young woman laughing, but every time I heard it, it sounded less and less like anything at all. Clicking on the desk takes us to the only zoom-in screen in the town hall, where we can go through the mayor's drawers. The top one is filled with matchboxes with adverts on them, although we can only view one of these matchboxes. The bottom drawer is filled with incriminating photos of the residents of Springfield, assumingly for the mayor to use as blackmail. The photo of Troy McClure is more, let's say, saucy than even the show itself. It's a reference to the fact that Troy likes to sleep with the fishes, and it has someone's legs in fishnets, which is very clever, a fish on his shoulder, a bra on the lamp, and his fly and belt are open. It's funny, I'm just kind of surprised they went this far visually with this joke. The top drawer contains lots of money, I can only assume they're bribes, and a key with Krusty's head on it. This is our second key we've found, and it also goes in our collect menu as it's going to be helpful later. The town hall is another one of the more basic locations. Not really much to explore and see, but it has better jokes than the Aztec Theatre, and at least there's a hidden key to find to make it worth coming here. We've covered most of the centre of Springfield now, which means we're going to need to go further out to find somewhere new. I've been enjoying this game so far, but I need to talk about one of its main issues, and that's how the navigation works. When out in Springfield, you'll always be facing one of four directions. These directions being north, south, east, and west. There's a compass at the top of the screen which tells you which way you're facing. On paper, you can just click on different directions and get around without ever needing to reference what direction you're facing. However, most parts of Springfield don't have a location that you can enter. There is very little to do in the town itself apart from checking out the different buildings and going to these locations that you can properly enter and explore. Eventually, while you're playing, you will start randomly clicking around and want to find out where a location is that you haven't seen yet, and that's where the map comes in. The map very clearly shows you where each of the explorable locations are, and there's a flashing dot to show you where you're currently at. On the map, you can see where you are, find somewhere you want to go, and then plan out your route. To understand the route you want to take, you need to look at the map, pick which direction you need to travel to, translate that to north, south, east, and west, and then translate that to the direction you need to click relative to the compass at the top of your screen. How well you get on with this system will depend on you and your ability to translate compass directions. I believe some people will have no issues here and will be able to check the map and quickly know which way they need to go. Others though, and I include myself in this, will take longer to get really comfortable with this approach. You have to figure out the compass direction and apply it to the way you're facing to decide whether up, left or right is the correct way to go. I can see why maybe they wouldn't want to rotate the map to keep that consistent, but I don't understand why they didn't include all 4 compass directions on the map itself rather than only showing north. You are told enough information to figure out where you need to go, but decisions like not showing the full compass on the map feels unnecessary. Unnecessary is how I would describe the complexity of moving around in this game. General navigation should be simple, so you can focus on exploration and just enjoy being in Springfield, yet you're spending more time than needed just figuring out where to go next. The system as a whole functions. It's mostly just surprising it isn't more user-friendly, especially as the rest of the game is so simple as it's only pointing and clicking. It feels out of place. I could see this working in a Monkey Island game where you're a pirate and learning to navigate with a compass would fit within the theme of that game, and it could almost feel like a mini puzzle. In this game though, where I just want to go from Moe's bar to the library, I kept being turned around, as I needed to click on one specific route to have the camera turn in just the right way so I can see half the library to click on it, and doing all this just feels so needless. A couple of quality of life improvements could have gone a long way, like having the map include a complete compass, or when highlighting a direction, have the compass direction appear above the cursor. Just anything to make figuring out where you need to go a bit smoother. The navigation unfortunately distracts more from the experience of being in Springfield, rather than adding any enjoyable depth. I next decided to go south to go check out the nuclear power plant. There's very little in the south part of Springfield, which means there's lots of long paths that the game automatically takes you down to get to the power plant. There are 4 screens to check out in the power plant itself. You start out in this hallway, and you can get to the other 3 screens from here. There's not much in this hallway, only a few things to click on, which are all tied to showing how run down and dilapidated the power plant is. Heading to Sector 7G, we see Homer at his workstation. Homer can be in 2 different poses, one where he's leaning back and asleep, and one where he's leaning forwards. If he's asleep, he'll eventually fall onto the floor and he won't stand back up. If he's leaning forward, then he pushes a button on his console that results in Lenny and Carl running past on fire. On the right, we have the drinking bird from the Season 3 episode, Brother Can You Spare 2 Dimes? And on the left there's a lever that we can't interact with yet. There's one zoom-in screen here with Homer's side desk, which has 2 photos on it and a pencil owned by Frank Grimes. We're now officially seeing Season 8 references in the game, which honestly feels a bit too early. With how all over the place the Simpsons video games were in 1994 and 1995, to then only get a cartoon editor in 1996, it feels like the Simpsons games skipped a huge chunk of the best seasons of the show. When we should have been getting great games referencing episodes from Season 5 and 6, we instead got Virtual Bar and the Itchy and Scratchy game. Cartoon Studio did have plenty of references, but Virtual Springfield is now referencing Season 8, and it makes the second half of the Acclaim era even more frustrating in retrospect. For context, Virtual Springfield released in September 1997, the same month that Season 9 premiered, which means it was also the same month of the infamous episode The Principal and the Pauper. This episode is considered the end of the golden age for some fans, which feels a bit unfair to me as the episode after this, Lisa's Sax, is one of the best episodes of the show. We can debate when the end of the golden age for The Simpsons was, but this means for Virtual Springfield is that it came out late enough to quote seasons 1 to 8, which most people would agree was the peak of The Simpsons. Last thing to note with Section 7G is that the photos change every time you click on Homer's desk, with 4 variations and 8 photos. Most are original images, apart from this shot from the Season 4 episode, Lisa's First Word. The next screen in the power plant is the reactor core. There's 3 variations with these power plant workers. If they're working on the left side, clicking on them will have them be vaporized. If they're in the middle of the room, a 2-headed dog will appear and they can play catch with this green rod. They can also be completely missing from the room. Not much to see in this room, apart from this panel on the left. Clicking the blue and green buttons don't do anything, but clicking on the red button opens the door revealing Hell and the Simpsons version of the devil. An alarm will keep playing until you press the red button again, but no one really reacts to the devil showing up. The best part about this room is that Stuart can be seen hard at work. It's nice to see that he finally fixed his bad work ethic. It's also here where I found my third community card on the left. The last room we can go into for now is Mr. Burns' office. There's 4 variations of this room. It can be empty, Mr. Burns and Smithers can be present, Mr. Burns can be at his desk with Homer entering the room, and Mr. Burns can shoot off in his escape pod, leaving only Smithers. The escape pod animation is quite rare. I saw it the first time I entered the room, and after going in and out of the room multiple times to make sure I had seen everything, I never saw the escape pod animation again. The only way I could consistently see this animation was by starting a new game and entering the room for the first time. You can seemingly only see this animation once per save file, and even after closing the game and reloading my save and heading back to the nuclear power plant, I could never get the escape pod animation to trigger once more. In this room we have the spruce moose on the left, underneath a series of monitors showing the plant's employees, including a rat monster with laser eyes. We can attempt to click on the fireplace, but it's somewhere that we can't go yet. If you click on the floor, a model of the power plant emerges. If Mr. Burns is in the room, then he does this short dance on the model with a cane and top hat. There are 3 books on Mr. Burns' desk which can be a bit tricky to click on, as you have to click on them individually. This book about the Irish took me off guard. This game definitely embraces the more rebellious parts of the show, and definitely pushes the limits of what they can and can't joke about. If Homer enters the room, then Mr. Burns gives the player the choice of 4 buttons to push as a way of punishing Homer. Trap 1 causes Homer to fall through a floor trap, Trap 2 causes a floor trap to appear next to Homer, which he jumps into. Bear makes Mr. Burns' stuffed polar bear come to life and chase Homer out of the room. It's a bit extreme, but it's interesting to see this bear actually move like a real bear rather than only being stuffed. Tube lowers a tube above Homer and sucks him out of the room, a reference to the season 5 episode, The Last Temptation of Homer. The power plant is in the south part of Springfield, and while there isn't many locations to check out, you can still go down several streets in the area. Near the power plant is the rich part of town. Not too much to see here, apart from you can stand outside the gates of Mr. Burns' mansion. There are several animations of Mr. Burns attempting to throw a rock, and one animation of Homer trying to escape Mr. Burns' hounds. I complained earlier about moving around Springfield, and unfortunately I have to complain about it a bit more. Some people will get used to using the compass very quickly, and some of them won't. However, even if you get used to this system pretty quickly, the options for where you can move to from each spot feel inconsistent. Sometimes you click to move and only go around the corner, and sometimes you end up traveling right down the road. They give you movement options depending on where they decided they were okay with you standing, but the map doesn't show the points where you can stop at, and there isn't a consistent logic with where you can go to. What also doesn't help is that you can't go backwards. If you pick the wrong direction or guessed incorrectly where the game would take you, you can't go back to try another route. Instead, you have to plan a new route to get back to where you were to try again. There were quite a few times where I ended up going in circles, as I could see on screen where I was trying to get to, but I kept going down the same streets in the wrong direction, as it's not always clear how to reach a specific point. You find yourself going down the opposite side of the street that you want to be on, but you can't turn around or switch to the other side of the street. They created a system where you always have to be facing one of 4 directions, and then they made it so you can only go one of 3 ways at max in any point. Springfield itself isn't poorly designed at all. I think they did a good job of keeping things close together while still giving the town a good sense of size and scale. The movement system that they went with though is clunky, and it ends up making certain sections feel like a maze, only it's a maze where you don't know where you're going to stop each time you move, and it's difficult to learn the patterns due to a lack of consistency. Let's wrestle with the movement system a bit more and head closer to the north part of Springfield. The first stop in North Springfield is Noiseland Arcade. This is a single room with several arcade cabinets with some of the more nerdy residents playing on them. There's 3 animations we can see, one where Grandpa tries to complain about people playing video games, one where Skinner writes something down in his notepad, and one where the bullies guard the door. It's a bit creepy the way that they block the entrance, just standing there not moving. To get them to leave, you have to click on them one by one, where they'll rob the people inside without them noticing. The arcade doesn't have much to click on, apart from the arcade machines themselves. We have 4 different machines that we can play. The first is Larry the Looter, which is a reference to the season 3 episode Radio Bar, but some of you might know it better from its appearance in Hit and Run. This one is a bit more interactive than the Hit and Run version, as you're actually controlling Larry here. This all plays out exactly as it does in Radio Bar. You have to push right so Larry starts walking, and then push up to smash the window and start looting. It always ends with you getting shot and getting a game over. If you don't push up to loot, then Larry will keep running past the window on a loop. It's quite cool to get to play Larry the Looter, although you couldn't really call this a game. I would have liked to see this been fleshed out a bit more, rather than strictly only including the very small part of the game that we see in the show. Next up is Krusty's Carnival of Cash, and okay, I need to talk about this for a second. Have you noticed that Krusty in the Simpsons video games usually looks horrific? In Krusty's Funhouse I don't think he's too bad, but whenever he makes a cameo, more often or not he looks quite horrible. Clowns are already known as being creepy, and video game Krusty is not helping. For the minigame, Krusty's head turns left and right, and you have to time rolling a coin so it goes into his mouth. This one made no sense to me. It looked like I was timing rolling the coin correctly, but it was just bouncing off him. There's no variation with the timing though, so if you roll the coin when Krusty spins all the way to the left, it will always go in. Not too impressed with this one. It's more of a game than Larry the Looter, but it's not really fun and isn't even a direct reference to the show. The third minigame is Super Slugfest, a reference to the season 1 episode Moaning Lisa. This one is a boxing match that you can play 1 or 2 player. You have several keys that you can press for different punches, although I found smashing D was enough to easily win. This is the best minigame in the arcade. It's a direct reference, you actually can press keys to perform different punches, and they included 2 player, so you can play against each other like Homer and Bart did in Moaning Lisa. The last minigame is Smite of the Bumblebee. Bumblebee runs back and forth and you time throwing tomatoes at him. Hit him 3 times and you win. I like that they got Bumblebee Man into Virtual Springfield. This again just doesn't feel like much of a minigame. You can't fail it in any way. You'll always win as long as you eventually hit him 3 times. That's all 4 of the arcade machines. It's hard to expect too much from what are side attractions to the main game, but I still would have liked a bit more. Super Slugfest is good for what it is, but Larry the Looter could have done with being a bit longer, and the other 2 minigames aren't even direct references to episodes. It also feels like a missed opportunity that there isn't any rewards for beating these games. We're currently collecting 74 community cards. Giving you a card for beating each of these machines would have been nice and made them feel a bit less pointless. It's a bit weak overall, and you're unlikely to spend much time in Noiseland Arcade as a result. Opposite Noiseland Arcade is the Kwik-E-Mart, which you can see from Noiseland Arcade, but you can't click on it directly to go there. You have to go to the left, which makes the Kwik-E-Mart go off screen, and then you can click to the right. In the Kwik-E-Mart we have one main screen, with our poo behind the counter, and several zoom-in screens to check out different products that are being sold. There are 4 animations you can see in the Kwik-E-Mart. Apu asking if you're from immigration, Sujeet waving his shotgun around, Krusty trying to use the microwave, and Homer unsuccessfully trying to get jerky. There's a song playing in the Kwik-E-Mart, which is a cover of the song Baby on Board, from the season 5 episode Homer's Barbershop Quartet, which is a really nice touch. There's something that doesn't quite feel right about the look of the Kwik-E-Mart. At first I thought it was because the walls and floors were blue, but that completely matches the show. Maybe it's because you can see the ceiling, or maybe it just feels too crammed. I can't put my finger on it, but there's something a bit off here. Maybe I'm just too used to it being purple, because that's how it looked in Hit and Run. 2 of the zoom-in screens feature some standard snack jokes. One screen has Sea Captain's chowder chips, and the other are random salty snacks. Clicking at the top of the screen zooms into 5 purple heart medals. This is a joke about how Apu gets shot a lot because he works at the Kwik-E-Mart. I was hoping the fact that there were 5 medals meant this was a more specific reference, but I couldn't connect these to the show directly. In Marge vs. the Monorail, he says that he's been shot 8 times, and in Lisa's Pony, he shows his chest and appears to have been shot 6 times, rather than 5. You can see another zoom in screen by clicking on the slushie machine and pour yourself a couple of slushies if you want. You can also take a look at the magazine rack, and this screen is very high effort. Unlike other screens, every magazine can be clicked and viewed on with 13 magazine covers to check out. They all seem to be original jokes as well. I don't personally recognize any of these magazine covers, which makes this pretty impressive. At the back of the Kwik-E-Mart, we can view the drinks fridge, and clicking on the non-alcoholic beers takes us to Apu's secret garden from the season 7 episode Lisa the Vegetarian. There's little to do here, but it's nice that they included this iconic part of the Kwik-E-Mart. Noiseland Arcade isn't the only location where you can play minigames, as if we click on the cash register, we're taken to a minigame called Apoom. The kid bullies run up to you and you can attack them to, well, outright murder them in an explosion of blood. This is all a parody of the game Doom, but I didn't expect them to go so far with it. You can actually see Simpsons characters die and explode in blood and guts in an officially licensed game. Like the photo of Troy McClure from the town hall, Virtual Springfield once again pushes the boundaries in terms of what they could get away with. As a minigame, it's pretty poor, as the only thing you can do is switch weapons and attack. If you attack with this giant kill weapon, then the game ends. They call this a minigame in the manual, but I don't think it's really meant to be. It's a short sequence that's only here to serve as a parody. Not sure if I would say I would like it. With the way it looks and the limited things you can do, it does come a bit close to matching the tone of something that's fan-made. I'm going to make myself sound old and lame here, but as a program for children, this feels like a step too far. It's certainly memorable and surprising when you first play it, so it does leave an impression. I just think with how gory it is, it doesn't really fit The Simpsons. It's finally time to visit the most iconic location from the show, and that's the Simpsons House, which you can find slightly north of the Kwik-E-Mart. There's lots to see here, and it starts before you even enter the house. There are several animations of Homer mowing the lawn in his lovely pink shorts, and we have Marge planting a flower under the window. I feel like I've seen Homer wearing pink shorts before, but I couldn't find any time when he did this before Virtual Springfield came out. If I've missed where these pink shorts come from, then please do let me know. Bart can be seen escaping from the window, which can be him skateboarding away, or he can fall off his skateboard and have to walk away in shame. It doesn't really make sense that Bart climbs out of this window, as according to the game, Bart's bedroom is on the back side of the house, meaning he's climbing out of Maggie's window rather than his own. Bit weird, but I don't want to get into what is the correct layout of the Simpsons house, as that's a messy subject. One thing I do want to say though, is that while Virtual Springfield was the inspiration for the real life Simpsons house to be built, interestingly they ended up with different layouts. It's the upstairs where the main differences are. In Virtual Springfield, we have Bart and Lisa's room on the right, on the back side of the house, and Homer and Marge's room is on the left. But for the real life house, Bart's room is on the left, making Lisa's and Homer's and Marge's room next to each other on the front side of the house. While the show is inconsistent with the layout of the house, the version in Virtual Springfield feels much more correct to me, and I would say it's a bit better than the real life house it ended up inspiring. Going back to the front of the house, you can click on the garage to get animations of Grandpa in drag, Lance Murdoch running off, Stampy the elephant, and Snake robbing the place. There is a zoom in screen here with this letterbox. There's a parcel from Hat of the Month, and you can keep clicking on it to see different hats come out each time. There's another parcel which comes with a letter, and you can hear Homer reading it out loud. This is a nice reference to the season 1 episode, The Grapes of Wrath. That's all we can see on this screen, but a unique part of the Simpsons house is that there's an extra screen for just outside the door. The doorbell gets automatically rung, and Homer, Marge, Bart or Lisa can greet you. Each of them have 2 different introductions, with Lisa winning the award for being the most haunting.
Take me away from all this death.
Inside the house we start in the foyer. Not too much to see here, mostly Grandpa coming out of the basement and saying some random things. Oh, and there's a squid monster that can poke out from behind the door. While you can explore most of the Simpsons house, the basement sadly isn't included, which is a bit of a shame. We're going to head left first and go into the living room. There's not too much to click in here, but this might be the room with the most unique animations that you can see by just entering the room. We have 5 animations with Patty and Selma, one where they insult Homer to Marge, one where Selma kisses Bart, one where they gross out Homer, and one where Lisa checks out Patty's leg hair before running off. The last animation has Patty and Selma realise they're missing MacGyver and storm off. There is a set of animations with Bart vaulting onto the sofa, which can result in the sofa collapsing, Bart successfully bouncing off with Lisa watching, Bart bouncing off and falling behind the sofa, Bart falling through the sofa, and Bart getting sucked into the cushions. These are references to the season 3 episode, Brother Can You Spare 2 Dimes, where Bart breaks the sofa, and speaking of that episode, we can also find Homer sitting in his vibrating chair. The last setup for this room is just Grandpa, who can be sleeping underneath the sofa cushions, or he can be standing there, and I think he makes a joke about soiling himself.
Sounds like someone's making pudding in there. Uh-oh.
To finish things off, you can also see Flanders walk past the window with a couple of different lines that he can say, and Nelson lassoing Milhouse. It's obvious just from these first few screens that they poured so much effort into the Simpsons house. The living room didn't need 13 separate animations and 2 background animations. It would have been fine with half as many. It's great that they made sure the Simpsons house had the most amount of content, but this may have caused other locations to be a bit more lacking, like what we saw with the Aztec Theatre. Another potential trade-off here is the quality of the animation. We have some more animations that don't look right, like Bart looks like he's giant, and the animations involving the sofa looks like they're at the wrong angle compared to the rest of the room. This is still all high effort, so let's keep going through the house to see what else we can find. The next room is the family room, where you can find the TV. We have 3 variations of the room, one where Bart and Lisa are watching TV, one where Bart is lying on the sofa, and one where no one is in the room. If Bart and Lisa are there, you can click on them to make them fight for a bit, before Marge tells them off. If only Bart's there, you can have him use the phone and he'll prank call Moe. There's 3 different prank calls and they're all original, with the names I Gotta Go Pee Now, Avery Was Your Booger, and Hey Would You Just Spank Me. If the sofa is empty, you can click on it to make random objects appear from underneath, including another reference to Brother Can You Spare 2 Dimes with the baby translator. Grandpa can also appear in this room to complain about the TV. I'm pretty sure that Grandpa is the most frequently used character in Virtual Springfield. He appears everywhere, including when you're just exploring the town. There's also Santa's little helper that you can click on, who chases his tail then runs away. Clicking on the TV lets you watch a series of brief clips from different TV shows, some being direct recreations from things seen on the show, and some being more general references. I really enjoy these clips. I especially really like seeing more of Artie Pie in the sky. Clicking on the bookshelf gives us 5 books to look at, which are mostly just photos and images. I won't go through them all, but I do want to highlight the family album. This is a series of photos, with a mix of photos from the show and a few new images. The best thing about this is that the Simpsons family will comment on the photos, like they're actually flicking through the album themselves.
Check out Bart! To think I'd almost faded that memory into oblivion.
What's the boy doing there?
All right, Mom!
It adds so much having the family talk here. It really helps make this feel like you're in the Simpsons world, and their comments makes this one of the nicest moments in the game. It's not wacky or hyper-focused on punchlines or trying to break the fourth wall. It's a family looking at their old photos and talking about it. Thanks to the simplified point-and-click gameplay, you get moments like this, which you won't get in any other Simpsons game, and it reminds me of the more family-focused side of the show that was present in those early seasons. From the family room we can head outside, which is very easy to miss. I missed this on my first playthrough as you have to click on the light on the floor. It's not particularly clear you can click on this, and what makes it harder to notice is that the light can be partially blocked by Santa's little helper. The backyard is very simple with nothing to click on. The weirdest thing about this screen is how many windows there are on the house. There's definitely too many here. While there's nothing to click on, you can see an animation of Todd and Rob bouncing on the trampoline, Santa's little helper burying Snowball 2, Bart jumping around a crusty water sprinkler, and a fly can land on the VR goggles that the player is meant to be wearing to experience Springfield. The backyard is mostly here so you can go to Bart's treehouse. In the treehouse, you can see Bart planning a water balloon attack with Milhouse, Lewis, Wendell, and Richard. There's a Radioactive Man comic to click on, and we can find our next community card on the tree. If you click on the balloons, it takes you to the next minigame. We have a view of the backyard with several characters, and you have to throw water balloons at each of them. I say you have to throw them, but there's no goal here, so I'm not sure I would even call this a minigame. This minigame is just an alternative way to click on things to see stuff happen, so instead of clicking, you're aiming and throwing water balloons to see people get wet. It doesn't track who you hit, and everyone resets their pose after you get them, so it's just something you can do if you want. It's a bit disappointing as a minigame, so let's head back into the house. Next up is the kitchen, and the most notable thing about this room is that Marge looks like a newt. Marge is here, but she doesn't do anything. You can't click on her, and she only reacts to other things that happen in the room. The kitchen is one of the weaker rooms in the Simpsons house. You can click on the cabinets for more jokey food products, but we've seen too many of these jokes by this point for these to be enjoyable. Maggie can fall out of the dishwasher, and Snowball 2 can run out of the oven on fire. A nice touch is that in the family room, you can see Snowball 2 run past with smoke coming out of her, and you get to see why that happens in the kitchen. There's a cookbook hidden on top of the fridge, and the fridge has two variations. One with Bart's D- from the season 2 episode, Bart Gets an F, and one with Lisa's essay from the season 3 episode, Mr. Lisa Goes to Washington. If you click on the microwave, you can see a rat get caught in the microwave, who then mutates and turns into a super rat with laser eyes and smashes through the wall. Once you do this, you can never see it again, as the rat-shaped hole stays in the wall, even when you come back into the room. The last room that's downstairs is the dining room. We can see the Simpsons family eating, Santa's little helper eating Homer's dinner, so he decides to eat his dinner, or the room can just be empty. There's an animation with the Simpsons praying before they eat, and Bart complaining about eating sprouts, but it only ever plays when you first enter the room, so you can only see it once per playthrough. If you enter the room and the room is empty, you can click on the painting to reveal a hidden safe in the wall, which has Homer's soul donut in it. I'm going to be very picky here and say I'm not a fan of this one. This is a reference to a Treehouse of Horror episode, so I don't think it makes sense to actually have it in the normal Simpsons home. It also doesn't match the show, as it's actually very well hidden, where the joke in the episode is that it's just sitting in the fridge and Homer only puts a few notes around it to protect it. Take these points as the rambling of a crazed Simpsons fan. Although you're an hour into a video about Virtual Springfield, overly picky ramblings about The Simpsons is likely why you're still here. Outside the dining room, we can see 4 random characters appear at the window, these being Krusty, Ralph, Sea Captain, and Mr. Burns, with Mr. Burns being one of my favourite clips in the entire game.
Yes, everything is according to plan.
Ooh, a few hundred people should hear about this.
Mine is a world of unceasing misery.
Time to head upstairs, and we start by looking at the hallway. Everything that happens in the hallway involves the bathroom, which is the door that's furthest away from you. You can click on the door to hear different members of the Simpsons family while they're in the bathroom, and you can even see Snake in there. Lisa can be seen trying to get Bart out of the bathroom, and you can also see Bart walk in on Lisa. We can't actually enter the bathroom, which leaves us 3 bedrooms to explore. The first door on the left is Lisa's room, who will directly greet the player as they enter. Lisa can be lying on her bed, playing her saxophone, or calling the Corey hotline. There's quite a lot of references to Bleeding Gums Murphy in this room, with the music sheet in the bottom left, and clicking on the mirror reveals a shrine to Bleeding Gums. On the desk we can find Lisa's report on whether Bart is dumber than a hamster, from the season 4 episode Duffless. There's an audio diary where you can listen to Lisa talking about each day over the course of a week. The most interesting clip is her saying that she's still thinking about Mr. Bergstrom. In the right drawer of the desk there's a note that shows us where the gerbil food is, and this note is something that goes into our collect menu. In the left drawer there's some type of creature with glowing eyes. I don't understand this one. It doesn't seem like it's a reference, and if it's meant to be a joke, then how does it tie to Lisa in any way? You can click on the bookshelves where you have Lisa's purse, a collection of records, and a set of books. The books are strange as if you click on one of them, you'll see a certain book, but if you click on the same book again, it will change to something else. There's 10 books to click on, so 20 individual book covers to see. The records are a mix of more references to Bleeding Gums Murphy and Happy Little Elves records. The purse only has 3 items in it, which can be tricky to click on as it's unclear if an item can be clicked on or if clicking is just going to close the purse. I really don't understand what this monkey that spits coins is. Like the weird eyes in the drawer, it feels like they didn't have enough items related to Lisa to fill Lisa's room, so we get random things thrown in here. There's a non-threatening boys magazine to read, which with the quality of the artwork, makes most of them look quite old and creepy. The last zoom-in screen for Lisa's room is her closet, which has her clothes in it, including her outfit from the Season 7 episode, Summer of 4'2". The rest of the closet is just Malibu Stacy toys. Let's head straight to Maggie's room on the right of the hallway. The room can be empty, or Maggie can be there, although it doesn't take her long to find a way to escape. You can click on the shelves to view Maggie's pacifier collection. I don't think any of these pacifiers come from the show though. Underneath her cot is the monkey paw from Treehouse of Horror 2. I quite like this reference, although as I didn't like Homer's soul donor as it was from a Treehouse of Horror episode, sadly I can't like the monkey paw, otherwise I'll be a hypocrite, so I have to say it's bad. On the table is another book of photos to look at, all of these being centered on Maggie. Similar to the family photo book, we have different family members commenting on the different photos, which is just as nice here as it was in the other one. I've been talking about the Simpsons house for a long time, and while there is still more to look at, I want to say I think there's too much in this house. I did praise this aspect previously, and it makes sense that there'll be so much to see in the Simpsons home, it's just nothing really happens here. The gameplay of Virtual Springfield is pointing and clicking on things, with features like finding keys, the community cards and minigames helping to break up what you're doing. It means staying in one location for so long gets tiring. On my first playthrough of Virtual Springfield, I found myself getting worn out by spending so much time just in the Simpsons house. I was trying to be thorough to see everything, which doesn't help, but pacing wise I think they went a bit overboard. It's fun going to a completely new location after exploring Springfield a bit more, and when that's removed, there's not enough to the game to enjoy staying in one place for so long. I didn't stop enjoying the game overall, I was still having a good time, it's just that the gameplay isn't strong enough to allow for so many screens and so many zoom-in screens in one location. The Simpsons house is by far the biggest location in the game, so it's only a problem here, and it's one you can easily circumvent by going through the rooms a bit faster. Cutting out some of the more pointless animations and zoom-in screens would have allowed for the Simpsons house to remain interesting throughout, and help it prevent it from becoming a bit dull. Anyway, we're going next to Bart's room, who like Lisa is lying on the bed and will greet us when we come in. Bart can be reading his comic on the bed, or he can hold out a small cup, which you can click on to give him a tip. He can also walk into the room and stand there completely gormless. We have the crusty alarm clock which quickly breaks, and clicking on the window as Milhouse or Martin appear who are being thrown upwards somehow by the bullies. Bart will shoot his slingshot at the bullies, causing them to throw Milhouse or Martin directly at the window. We can click on the shelf to see some short animations, like the Scratchy doll being skewered. There are 3 zoom-in screens to check out, starting with Bart's desk. There's a few direct references to see, with the property of Bart Simpson stickers from the Season 3 episode Radio Bart, the Dino Sponges from the Season 7 episode Bart Sells His Soul, and Mr. Honey Bunny in the top drawer from the Season 6 episode Lisa on Ice. In the left drawer we have Bart's slingshot, which takes us into another mini-game. This one is called Slingshot Toss, and you fire green pellets at a poster of Sideshow Bob. It doesn't track your score in any way, there's no way to win, and when you fire a shot after you aim the slingshot, it doesn't always land in the same place. I don't want to be too harsh to these minigames as they're just here to break up all the clicking, and they're not really meant to be all that deep. I just wish they were structured in a way to not feel so pointless. They don't need to add much depth to each of these, but too many of them just feel like a waste of time and effort. You can go into Bart's closet, which has a collection of board games, a Krusty doll that you can click on to hear different voice clips, and a box of explosives. The last zoom-in screen is a bit hidden, but if you click on Bart's bed, you can look underneath it. There's a Play Dude as a birthday gift from Homer, and a Homer voodoo doll. If you click on different parts of the doll, you can hear Homer tell Marge that different parts of his body hurt. The important thing to do here is click on this note hidden underneath the boards. This is a top secret note, and it shows the location of Bart's secret stash at the school, and it's something else that we can collect. That's everything in Bart's room, which leaves Homer's and Marge's room. There's 2 states this room can be in. If you just enter the room, then the room will be empty. If you wait outside the door and have the right animation trigger, you see Bart as an explorer go into the room, and you're taken inside to see Homer as Mr. Plow about to snuggle with Marge. Marge will stay on the bed and stare at you as you click around, but won't react to anything you do. Clicking on the closet shows Homer's hat from the Season 7 episode, Homer Palooza, Marge's smudged t-shirt from the Season 5 episode, The Last Temptation of Homer, and a Timmy O'Toole t-shirt from the Season 3 episode, Radio Bar. There's 2 zoom-in screens to see here. The chest of drawers is filled with references to Homer, and the mirror at the desk is filled with references to Marge. For the mirror and desk, we see a picture of Marge as a police officer from the Season 6 episode The Springfield Connection, the bowling ball from the Season 1 episode Life in the Fast Lane, and Marge's French perfume also from Life in the Fast Lane. You can view some of Marge's records, with the best being a Bobby Sherman record, which you can hear Lisa laughing at just like in the show. There's the book Love in the Time of Scurvy, which you can also click on, or you can click on it through the mirror, which is a nice touch. On top of the drawers we have Homer's high school yearbook, with entries for Homer, Flanders, and Dr. Hibbert's wife for some reason. There's quite a few references here, with my favourite being the long sandwich hidden in the top left drawer, which is a reference to the Season 4 episode, Selma's Choice. In the top right drawer, there's something with Butfinger written on it, likely a reference to the Simpsons' ongoing role in Butterfinger's adverts. This is actually another note that we can collect. This time it's a riddle, which sounds like it will lead us to donuts in the nuclear power plant. To finish off the Simpsons home, we have the ensuite bathroom. The toilet itself has some magazines, and opening the top reveals a hidden Duff beer and a skull. You can also click on the sink to race shampoo and toothpaste, just like in the Season 6 episode, Bart vs. Australia. The race can have either shampoo or toothpaste winning, or it can end in a draw, which is strange as I thought the whole point of that episode was that one would always win due to the way the water spirals down. So that's all the rooms in the Simpsons house. It definitely gets a thumbs up for ensuring there was plenty to see and do in the most important location from the show, but I do think they went a bit overboard. I feel like this would have been better if they cut it down a bit. The backyard and treehouse don't offer much, and the ensuite bathroom didn't need to be there. The 2 minigames feel very pointless and also could have been removed without losing much. Despite my complaining, there is a lot of great references and content here, so it remains a highlight of the game. It also deserves a lot of praise as this was the first time we got a proper version of the Simpsons house to explore. It's great that they released an official product that shows the house properly, to finally see how it all connected and get this complete layout. We have other ways of seeing this house nowadays, but Virtual Springfield helped standardize the house, and it did it in a way that allowed people to explore it for themselves. Just like in the show, next door to the Simpsons is the Flanders house. You can view the Flanders house before going in, although there's nothing to see, nothing that you can click on, and no animations play. It might be the only screen in the game where literally nothing happens. The only thing interesting about this screen is that in the top left corner, the scene is labelled as System OK. The text here normally describes the location you're currently looking at, but here it doesn't work. It seems like a bug, and if there's a bug with this, I wonder if that means if the scene is somewhat broken, so something was supposed to happen, but this scene doesn't load in properly as it wasn't correctly set up. There's only one room to explore, that being the recreation room in the basement. Flanders can walk in to greet the player, or you can find Todd and Rod sitting on the sofa. If Todd and Rod are there, you can click on them to have them sing songs, although with how awful the songs are, I would recommend leaving them be. On the table there's a family photo album which shows the Flanders family exploring the globe, while in the exact same pose in every location. There's multiple things you can zoom in on, with the Bible toys on the floor, a Poe Poddy's Nervit poster, a baptism kit, an exorcism kit, and Flanders' PhD. If you enter the room when Rod and Todd aren't there, you can click on the sofa, which reveals a hidden church behind the wall. This animation is a bit unique, as it's one of the few in the game that you can trigger while a different animation is already playing, as you can start it while Flanders is still talking. Clicking on the TV shows all the channels being locked out, apart from the Messiah Watch channel, where reporters around the world confirm they haven't seen the Messiah. There's the bookshelf and record collection to look at, which features different books and records that are all jokes about Flanders being Christian or being a goody two-shoes. At the back of the room there's a calendar to click on, with the picture for each month being a parody image of a different Bible story, with a surprisingly bloody version of David and Goliath. That leaves the bar to look at, which is actually another mini-game. This one is a little better than the ones in the Simpsons House. You have to aim and squirt holy water onto different objects to transform them, but you have to shake the bottle first to aim. Shaking it twice sprays the bottom row, and 3 times sprays the top shelf. You can spray Adam to have his rib fall out and make Eve, and you can spray the ashes of Uncle Louie to tip over the jar and have his ghost fly away. It's a pretty funny joke, although a bit of a missed opportunity to not have Grandma Flanders here instead of Uncle Louie. This minigame is better than some of the others, as each item's states change after you squirt it, making the goal to see how everything can be changed. Not too exciting, but at least it's worth playing to see what everything transforms into. With the Flanders house covered, it's time to head over to East Springfield. The map is divided into 2 sections, West and East Springfield, which are separated by a river. So far we've only explored West Springfield, so now we'll head across one of the 2 bridges to go to East Springfield. East Springfield is pretty big, although it's nowhere near as dense as West Springfield is. It's still full of iconic Springfield buildings, but there's only 5 locations that you can explore. The road layout is simpler, but there's more moments where you can see a road, but the game won't let you go down it. When you're in West Springfield, you need to check the map as there's lots of different roads and it's easy to go down the wrong one. In East Springfield, it's worth checking the map so you know what roads are even possible to use. As the last place we visited was the Flanders house, it feels appropriate to go to the church next. The church has Reverend Lovejoy giving a boring sermon, and sometimes the collection plate is passed around everyone in the crowd. Like a few other locations, there's very little to see here, no variations with the animation, and only a few voice clips that you can hear from each of the members of the Simpsons family. Clicking on the podium takes us to the only zoom-in screen of the church. We get another community card at the bottom, next to a Gabbing About God t-shirt from the Season 3 episode Like Father Like Clown. The Hush Fund has a photo of Homer and Flanders when they had to wear dresses and mow each other's lawns, from the Season 2 episode Dead Putting Society, and there's a magazine called Ukrainian Erotica. Not sure I quite get the joke here. Is Lovejoy meant to be into Ukrainian women that look like Homer? I don't quite see the connection. The church is a few locations that are quite simple, so let's jump to the next one by going north and visiting the cemetery. This is a bit unique as when you enter the cemetery, Springfield goes from day to night to give it that spooky feel. There's only one thing we can click on with a telescope, but we can't click on it just yet. Outside of that, the only thing to do is to watch the different animations that play, most of them involving zombies. You can also see different zombie animals like zombie dogs, cats and mice. One of the animations sees Lionel Hutz trying to get the business of one of the zombies. I really love seeing Lionel Hutz in the game, with him being voiced by Phil Hartman. Virtual Springfield features all the voice actors from the show, and when I say all, pretty much everyone returned for this game. There's plenty of Simpsons games that feature the actual voice actors, to the point where it's easy to take it for granted, but Virtual Springfield still takes this a step further. We have 11 credited voice actors, including Phil Hartman as a special guest. We have Maggie Roswell here as well, the voice of Maud Flanders and Helen Lovejoy, as this was just before she temporarily left the show and Maud was killed off. It means we get a ridiculous amount of characters, and they're all voiced by their original voice actors. The credits is oddly missing Matricia Wallace, who voices Edna Krabappel. Edna Krabappel is in the game, and I believe it's her actual voice, just she isn't listed in the credits.
Hey, it's an extra $100 a month.
The only main recurring characters that are really missing here are Fat Tony and Lunch Lady Doris. Despite this, we have 12 voice actors in Virtual Springfield, a record that the Simpsons game wasn't able to match, and sadly this record will never be beaten due to several of the voice actors passing away. If you need one reason to play Virtual Springfield as a Simpsons fan, it's to experience all the voice actors together in one unified game. The only media outside the show that matches Virtual Springfield is the Simpsons movie, which unfortunately wasn't able to include Phil Hartman as it was made after his passing. Across the street from the cemetery is the retirement castle. It's another single screen location, with it taking place in Grandpa's room. The room can be empty, Grandpa can be reading his newspaper which Jasper steals, or Grandpa can be writing an angry letter on a typewriter which Jasper also steals. You can also see Hans Moleman get knocked over and rolled on by someone in a wheelchair, and Def checking in from the mirror. There's a photo which changes every time you click on it. There's 2 images of Grandpa's wedding and 2 images of Mr. Burns stealing Marge's mum from Grandpa, from the season 5 episode Lady Bouvier's Lover. There are 3 drawers to go through, with the top one having the Stonecutters underwear and Jamaican jerk herky. The middle drawer has Grandpa's wallet, with nice callbacks to the season 6 episode Homer the Great. The bottom drawer is locked, so we'll have to come back to see what's in it. The other things in this room are the list on the table from the season 7 episode Raging Abe Simpson and his grumbling grandson in the Curse of the Flying Hellfish, and a few magazines with jokes about old people. Let's not waste any time and head north to our next location, the Springfield Gorge. It's our 4th location in a row that mostly takes place on a single screen. The references here are largely from the season 2 episode Bart and the Daredevil, like seeing Bart jump across the gorge on his skateboard, and you can see Lars Murdoch try it as well, only to miss and have his bike explode. Oddly, you never see Homer try and jump the gorge. I thought that Homer falling down the cliff was one of the most famous parts of the show during the 90s, yet there's no reference to it here. There's a version of this screen with vultures circling on the top, and you can also see a campervan drive past and almost fall into the gorge. There's one zoom-in screen by clicking on the tourist binoculars, which gives you a view of the rest of Springfield. This is another screen where it doesn't display a proper name, listing System OK just like outside of Flanders' house. It's quite a cool view to look at. It's not 3D, but it's a 2D image of the 3D version of Springfield that's in the game. It's nice to get a more complete view of the entire town. We've gone through 4 locations quite quickly, and I will say, picking up the pace was very much needed after how long the Simpsons House was. As we still don't have what we need to enter the Stonecutters Temple, that leaves us with only one location, that being Krustylu Studios. At the start of the game, you can explore Krustylu Studios, but you won't be able to enter Krusty's office. Luckily for us, we already found the key for the office hidden in the town hall, so we can see everything that Krustylu Studios has to offer straight away. Before going anywhere, we have the hallway, and if we click on the Labour Laws poster, we can find another community card. Nothing else to see here, only the secretary who only ever works on her nails. It's a shame that this character isn't Lois Pennycandy instead, Krusty's assistant from Like Father Like Clown. I always thought she was a character that deserved to be in the show a bit more. We'll save Krusty's office for last and instead go into Studio 12. This is where you find Ken Brockman recording action news, and you can watch 3 different news stories. The first is about killer bees, with Professor Frink showing off a machine that ends up hurting him. The second is Artie Pie in the Sky, reporting on fish spilling over a bridge. The last one is Wiggum giving a press conference and accidentally calling himself Chef instead of Chief. Nothing else to click on here. There's a guy who will smile and wave at the player, and a woman gives Ken his precious Danish, as a reference to the season 5 episode Bart Gets Famous. The next room is the control room, where we have several screens displaying different TV shows being recorded. There's another community card you can find in the clipboard on the left. Clicking on the left shelf gives us a collection of videos, and we can watch 3 of them. The first is a set of clips showing people getting hurt on the Krusty the Clown show. The second is auditions for Sideshow Bob's replacement. There's a variety of Simpsons characters auditioning by getting drenched with a bucket of water. The last one is new anchor auditions, with different characters trying out, including Lionel Hutz, who looks a little bit creepy. There are buttons in this room labelled 1, 2, 3 and a question mark, which I couldn't find a purpose for. They don't seem to be connected to anything. If anyone does know what these do, then please do let me know. At the end of the hallway is Studio 14, where the Krusty the Clown show is being recorded. You first see Krusty introducing an Itchy and Scratchy cartoon, which you actually get to watch. Following that, Krusty tries to remote his kids magazine, only to show off New People magazine, so he rushes back to another cartoon. It's Itsy and Scratchy again, but it isn't a repeat of the one before, it's a separate episode. You can also see Krusty going around the loop-de-loop, and Mr. Teeny ride his unicycle across a rope. Before you leave the set, you can choose to burn Sideshow Mel with acid if that's something you're into. Before going into Krusty's office, it's worth saying that Krustylu's studio is one of the best locations to explore in the game. It steps back from the point-and-click gameplay with less things to click on and less zoom-in screens, and allows you to just watch and enjoy the different short clips that they created. It's a TV studio, so appropriately, you're able to watch a variety of short films, and it's some of the best animation in the game. It's impressive to see 2 brand new and original Itchy and Scratchy cartoons that feel like genuine episodes that you would see in The Simpsons itself. Sticking with just showing videos allows for extra cameos from characters you don't see elsewhere, like Cletus, and you end up seeing a lot of different characters all in the same location. Virtual Springfield is a game that walks the line between an interactive experience and a game, and I think Krustylu Studios presents the case for leaning harder into being an interactive experience. Do not worry about gameplay and having to click on everything, and instead just let the player sit back and soak in all the original Simpsons content. We have one last room to check out, and that's Krusty's office. This is similar to the rest of the game, where we have Krusty at his desk and we can explore everything in the room. Sideshow Mel can cartwheel in, and Krusty can either crush him with a 2-ton weight or shoot him with a mini cannon. Mr. Teeny can also be seen on the sofa, smoking a cigar, with the smoke turning into different Krusty sidekicks. All along the walls are movie posters you can view, each of them featuring Krusty the Clown. You can zoom in on Krusty's desk and check out a few of the drawers. In the top left drawer is a book of memories, which shows a collection of photos of Krusty with different celebrities. There's a photo of Krusty with Bette Midler from the season 4 episode Krusty Gets Cancelled, and it's surprising to see a celebrity who was a guest star in the show also appear in one of the games. Mr. Teeny can also blow smoke into the form of Luke Perry from that same episode. Virtual Springfield might be the only game where we see celebrity guest stars from the show make an appearance, one to keep an eye out for as we go through the future Simpsons games. Not too much else to see. There's Krusty's stock portfolio, a drawer full of balls we can't look at, and a business card for one Tony Kneecap Grillo. We have gone over all the locations that are available to us and experienced the majority of the content in the game. There's no official endpoint to Virtual Springfield, so at this stage you could argue that we've beaten the game. We haven't seen everything though, so it's the equivalent of playing the game on easy and skipping the side content. Of course I didn't talk your ear off for an hour and 30 minutes, only to stop before we saw everything there is. There are 3 goals we have left to complete. The first is to use the items we found to access everything that was locked. The second is to find a way into the Stonecutters Temple, and the third is to find all the community cards in the game. We already used an item that we found to unlock a new area, with the Krusty key getting us into Krusty's office, so let's see if we can find a use for the other items in our collect menu. We have 2 notes that show locations at the school, and there was a few things at the school that we couldn't do anything with previously, so let's head over to the school to see what we can find. The first note was from under Bart's bed in the Simpsons house, and it pointed to Bart's locker, which now allows us to open the locker in the hallway. This is how items work in Virtual Springfield. You can find a literal key that allows you to unlock something that was locked before, or you can find an item that you don't directly use, instead you're supposed to now have extra knowledge which allows you to interact with something that you couldn't before. It would have been nice to have used the item in some way to make it a bit more satisfying. As you don't have to directly use the item, it also means that you might find an item that gives you access to something, but because you don't have to directly use it, you might not even realize you've unlocked something new. Anyway, in Bart's locker we have a photo of Bart and Satan Flanders, which is interesting as in the power plant we saw the old design for Satan rather than it being Flanders. Also in the locker, Bart has different items for pranks and an adult pack of cards. On the back of the locker door is another note, and it says don't forget to check Grandpa's bottom drawer. The note is the main thing you want from the locker, so we can now leave, although not before checking out the other locker where we can find Ralph stuffed into it. The next note we have talks about feeding Super Dude in Miss Hoover's classroom. We still can't interact with Super Dude, but the note says that the hamster food is in the bottom drawer of Miss Hoover's desk, so this now allows us to open the drawer of her desk and get the food. With the food, we unlock a new zoom-in screen to check out Super Dude. Not too much to see here, unfortunately. There's a few animations that Super Dude can do, including you feeding him. If you open up the drawer, there's a hidden community card at the back, which has a white version of Lou, which is unsettling. There's nothing else to do here with, let's call it a quest? You find the note in Lisa's room, you find the food, and you can look at Super Dude now. There's a few of these what I'm going to call quests, and they're hit and miss. We've just wrapped up the Super Dude quest, and we're in the middle of another quest with the note that we found in Bart's locker. The Super Dude one is a bit weak. It's nice to find items to then allow us to see something new, but seeing a hamster doesn't feel like much of a reward. At least there was a community card here though. That's the 2 notes sorted, but there's still one more thing to check out at the school. All the way back at Moe's, we found a key labelled Spanky, and this key allows us to enter Principal Skinner's office. I really like that the key was labelled Spanky. It rewards people who really know the show and will get this reference straight away, so we'll head straight to the school to use it. If you don't get the reference, you can either remember that you saw a locked door in the school and try it anyway, or you'll naturally have to come back to the school as there's 2 separate notes that require you to go there again. Even for a game with as little gameplay as Virtual Springfield, that's surprisingly nice design. Going into the office, Skinner can be in there or the office can be empty. If Skinner is present, you can see a few different interactions with Groundskeeper Willie and Skinner making some unreasonable requests of him. Also, when Skinner is at his desk, you can check out his voicemails. There's messages from the superintendent, Agnes, Nelson, and a character that isn't from the show, that being Edna's therapist.
Hello, this is Miss Krabappel's psychiatrist. Would you please keep her away from, Bart Simpson today?
I can't say for sure who's providing the voice of Edna's therapist. I would guess Dan Castellaneta? You can view the B Sharps record on the wall with the Board of Education underneath. You can click on the student records with 4 drawers, and one of these is dedicated to Bar. We have 20 last names here, and the origins of some of these is unclear. We have 8 names which are clear references to the different kids from the show, like Muntz and Wiggum. One of the names is Morales, which is likely a nod to Art Morales, who is credited for art direction for Virtual Springfield. This name is very difficult to read, so I'm likely going to get it wrong, but I believe this is another dev who was one of the animators, called John Nunimaka. For the other 10 names, I really have no idea. These surnames are pretty specific, which means they're likely referencing a real person, but I couldn't find any connections that made sense. For example, the most famous person with the last name Tobler, which is a German name, is Theodor Tobler, who invented the Toblerone. I couldn't find the connection with these, but this is Virtual Springfield where everything seems to be a reference, so leave a comment below if you have any ideas about what these could be tied to. The last area to explore in Skinner's office is his desk. There's a drawer with a collection of magazines and photos, and the desk is covered in different post-it notes written by Skinner. If you select on the computer, then you're taken to a primitive 90s version of the internet. There's a login screen which parodies AOL, with Skinner's login details all filled in. There's a panic and cry button which plays sound effects of Homer panicking and crying. I don't really get the joke with Homer being the voice of these 2 buttons, so let's quickly move on and log on. There are 5 clickable options, which include a chat room, an itchy and scratchy forum, an advert for an event, and the news. 4 of these links don't actually work, and when you click on them, you get one of several different weird error messages. The only link that does work is Skinner's emails. We have an email from Superintendent Chalmers asking about a child being attacked by a Kwik-E-Mart, a kind of confusing reference to the season 1 episode Bart the Genius. The second email is from Martin Prince, talking about the telescope in the cemetery and giving us some degrees to check out. This email is unique as reading it unlocks the telescope for us to use, which is the only time that you unlock something without getting an item added to your collect menu. The last 2 emails are from Vets March again and Nelson, who's laughing at Skinner as he saw his mother riding the bus. That wraps up Skinner's office and it's a pretty nice extra area to explore. Like most areas in the game, it's full of different references, and with Skinner being one of the most notable side characters in the show, it makes sense to have an unlockable section be focused on just him. We have 3 places we can go. There's the note about donuts, the new note about Grandpa's drawer, and we saw Martin's email about the cemetery. As the cemetery and retirement home are next to each other, let's head back to East Springfield first. In the cemetery we can now use the telescope, and have a few different angles we can point it at. As Martin described, the interesting bits are at 60, 180 and 300 degrees. 60 degrees has the Big Butt Skinner balloon, and 80 degrees has a comet, both references to the season 6 episode Bart's Comet. If we go 300 degrees, we see this.
Foolish Earthlings, playing with your primitive computers, watching your silly TV. Little do you know you will soon be stewing in our secret sources.
I really appreciate that they got Kang and Kodos in the game somewhere, and seeing them through the telescope is a really nice way of including them without removing the feeling that you're exploring ordinary Springfield. Definitely worth going out of your way to unlock the telescope to see this one. Let's go across the road and check out the drawer in Grandpa's room. In the drawer we find a Stonecutters ring that we can pick up. If you remember from before, we couldn't enter the Stonecutters Temple as we didn't have the sacred ring, and now we do. This is pretty exciting, so let's head straight to the Stonecutters Temple to explore the final location of the game. Heading back to the Stonecutters Temple, we can head in and are taken to the main hall. All the Stonecutters members are drinking and eating in a way that you see from the episode that this all comes from, that being the season 6 episode Homer the Great. They pretty faithfully recreate that scene with the different characters at the table. They didn't copy it 1-to-1, but we have all the Springfield characters who are Stonecutters here and the alien. I was confused at first at who this white character was, until I rewatched the episode and realised it was the egg that Homer chases, who then turns out to be a member of the Stonecutters. When you enter, Homer will sing the song We Do in its entirety.
Who controls the British crown? Who keeps the metric system down? We do. We do.
It's only him that's singing it, rather than everyone in the hall, and there's no backing track, which makes this a lesser version of the song, but a unique version all the same. Clicking on the picture at the back cycles through a series of pictures, showing different people paddling Homer as part of his initiation. There's an extra character scene whacking Homer that wasn't in the episode, and I can only assume that it's meant to be Matt Groening. Matt Groening made several appearances in later Simpsons games, and is normally shown as being grey, but in earlier on-screen appearances that he made, you can see that he had brown hair. This version doesn't match his design from the later games, but if you look at the very brief cameo of him in the season 5 episode, The Boy Who Knew Too Much, that cameo is much closer to the design seen in this game. Oddly, I couldn't find anyone referencing this cameo. If you go to the Simpsons wiki, there's a list of appearances by Matt Groening, and Virtual Springfield is missing from the list. I might just be wrong here, but I'm pretty sure it's meant to be Matt Groening. Clicking on the stage takes us to the only zoom-in screen for the Stonecutters Temple. There's a green book on the right, which talks about possessing the Flanders children, and we can pick up the book for our collect menu. Underneath the stage is another community card that we can pick up. The poster on the right tells us to light the candle to hear the wisdom of the chosen one, and clicking on the candle has Homer open the door and give some advice. There's only 2 lines of dialogues for this, and neither of them are that funny to be honest. Clicking on the podium takes us behind it, and there's a box with a key inside to collect. The key is engraved CMB, which should be very easy for any Simpsons fan to figure out what CMB stands for. This key is the last item in the game that we can collect, and despite the simplicity of the item system, it's pretty satisfying finally collecting everything and filling every spot on this screen. And that's everything in the Stonecutters Temple. For the only location that takes several steps to gain access, it's hard not to be a bit disappointed. There's really not enough here to see. The main hall looks great, but there's little to click on and no extra animations to check out. Many of the other locations have much more to see and do, and with this being hidden and more of a reward for fully exploring Springfield, there needed to be more here. Saying that, the Stonecutters Temple was the perfect spot to use as an unlockable location. Unfortunately for us, there's still a bit more to see before we wrap up. We picked up the book about the Flanders children, and heading over to the Flanders house with the book allows us to watch this new animation.
I'm out of freaking control! Oh, my freaking body!
The power of God compellingly ells you. The power of God compellingly ells you.
That was a bad guess, right, Daddy?
Hey, who wants nachos?
Yay!
It's effective at being quite creepy, which is amplified by the fact that this isn't something you normally would see. The book itself says to use the mouse to possess the children, but I don't think you have to do anything with the mouse. Repeatedly resetting the scene will cause it to trigger eventually, as long as you've collected the book. That leaves 2 more items that we haven't used, the note about donuts in Sector 7G and the key with CMB on it. CMB of course stands for Charles Montgomery Burns, and as the other note wants us to go to Sector 7G, we need to head back to the nuclear power plant. With the note in hand, we can now activate the lever in Homer's workstation, which drops a handle to pull, then a light to click on, and finally a hidden box of donuts. Clicking on the donuts takes us to the final mini-game, Donut Toss. This one is quite similar to Balloon Toss, where you aim and throw donuts at Homer's work console. Each part of the console that you hit with a donut will get damaged, and eventually the entire console breaks, causing a very loud alarm to go off. I think this would have freaked me out as a kid. Mr. Burns has an unsettling animation you can see on one of the screens as you're throwing donuts, and the alarm flashes death symbols after you win, and it's very in your face. Donut Toss isn't the worst minigame though. It's as pointless as the rest, but at least you have some sort of goal to destroy everything in this scene. For the CMB key, if we head back to Mr. Burns' office, we can now click on the fireplace and enter his secret washroom. Not a lot to click on and no zoom in screens, but there's plenty of animations to check out. When first entering the room, Mr. Burns will fall down the stairs, causing Smithers to carry him into a secret lab and convert him into a cyborg. Homer can be seen using the restroom, Bumblebee Man falls out from behind a tree, groundskeeper Willie appears from the fountain, Otto shows up from behind the foliage, and Snake can be seen breaking in. The washroom is essentially the final screen of the game, acting as the ending for Virtual Springfield. To get here, you have to find the note under Bart's bed, go to the school to collect another note, go to the retirement castle and collect the ring, go to the Stonecutters Temple, find the key there, and then go to the nuclear power plant and open up this secret entrance. Might not sound like much, but this takes a lot of time to figure out. You have to explore every location of Springfield and then connect all the dots to where you need to use each of these items. There's little to actually do in the washroom, but it feels like an appropriate reward for beating the game. It's a fancy location, the Mr. Burns animation is funny, and there's a surprising amount of characters who show up here. There is also 2 different songs that can play in the washroom. You either get the Simpsons theme or a remix version of the song that plays when you're exploring the 3D version of Springfield. Despite there being no "the end" message or credits that automatically play, it really does feel like you've beaten Virtual Springfield by seeing this. It's a good feeling, and they did a nice job of setting up this room to feel like it's worth getting to. As we've beaten Virtual Springfield, I can finally sum up my feelings on the game and rank it against the other Simpsons games. Oh wait, we're still not done yet. Despite going through every location, seeing every secret and screen in the game, we only have 10 out of a possible 74 community cards. That means we somehow missed 64 cards. So where are they, and how could I have possibly missed so many of them? Well, unfortunately the community cards don't work in a way that any sensible person would expect them to. Rather than them having 74 different locations, there are only 17 across the game. Each time you find a card, it will give you a random character card. Returning to the locations with a card hidden in them will cause them to respawn, meaning to get all 74, you have to keep going back to locations where you found a card and keep collecting them over and over again until you have all 74. Even though the cards are optional, it's a huge shame that they were set up this way. I can't imagine anyone playing this game wouldn't assume that there would be 74 unique locations, and that the best approach to finding them all would be to be as thorough as possible. The The cards are a really nice idea to motivate people to check out every scene fully, to make sure they don't miss any of the cards. You don't need to do this at all though. It's not about rewarding the player for checking every inch of the game, it's just about making the player grind. There's a moment when you're playing this game when you realise something isn't right due to how little cards that you have, and it's a very strange feeling. You don't know if you're an idiot that's failing to find the cards and you're just missing them, or maybe there's a ton of extra locations to find that you haven't seen yet, or maybe it's broken in some way that you don't understand. The best way to figure this out without looking it up online is to revisit a location you've already seen with a card, see it respawn, collect that card again, and then see that it gives you a different character. The cards aren't always present though. It's possible to go to a card location and have it be missing, which gives you the complete wrong idea of what's going on. In a game with limited gameplay, removing the hunting aspect to the cards feels like a big misstep, and it would have been much more enjoyable to have fixed locations, so you feel like you've earned all the cards and proven that you've seen everything in the game. For those who still want all the cards, there is an easy method to do it. In Krustylu Studios, there's a card hidden behind the poster and there's one in the control room. These rooms are connected to each other, so you can keep going back and forth between them and the cards will keep respawning. It's pretty lame and not that fun, but with enough patience, you can get all the cards using this method. It took me just under 15 minutes of going back and forth to get all 74 cards. Once you get the 74th card, new cards stop spawning in, and checking your card collection reveals a bonus 75th card. This card tells you to check out the website foxinteractive.com/frink. Unfortunately, this website no longer exists, but there is an incomplete version we can look at by using the Wayback Machine. This version doesn't have any of the images archived, which means big chunks are completely missing. This website allows you to purchase 4 items. There's a $1 price for each, but you don't actually have to spend any money. There's a reference here to Copper Global Hyper Mega Net, which comes from the Season 9 episode Das Bus. It's an interesting reference as Virtual Springfield came out in September 1997 and would have contained the link to this website, but Das Bus didn't air until February 1998. Maybe this reference was on the website before the episode aired and someone on the team heard about that episode before it was finished. Or possibly the website was updated after the episode aired to include this reference. Each item you can buy on this page gives you information about the game. Martin Prince's undocumented feature list tells you that you can press spacebar to stop moving when travelling around Springfield so you can look around. Otto's unofficial Springfield tourist map is a map of the game and a list of every location in Springfield that you can see but not go into. If there are any famous locations you see in the list that you missed, you can jump back into Virtual Springfield and track them down. The bicentennial commemorative American cheese is only images, which means we can't see what this would have been. I've left Professor Frink's navigation teleport for last, as it's the best one of the bunch. This tells you a hidden command in the game where you can teleport to any location by pressing Shift, V and S at the same time. This is something you can do from the very start of the game, you just need to know it exists. With navigation being one of the main downsides of the game, having a secret teleport function is a really cool reward. You've likely done everything in the game by the time you unlock it, but with how dense this game is in terms of animations and content, it's also possible you've missed something, and the teleport makes going back to different areas again so much quicker. It even lets you warp to the Stonecutters Temple directly without going through the steps to get the ring beforehand. I love this reward. It's both useful and hidden in a clever way where it's out in the open, just hard to find without being told. One of the most surprising aspects of Virtual Springfield is how much there is to see and do. What feels like a game that you should only really spend an hour playing, seeing a few Simpsons gags and references before moving on, can easily turn into a much longer hunt for secrets. I spent 6 hours playing this game, and that doesn't include the extra time I spent spamming certain locations to try and see everything that I could. If you break up your playthrough a bit and spend more time naturally exploring, someone could easily spend longer than 6 hours on this. A child could keep coming back to this game again and again, and due to the random elements, they could see something new every time they play. It's impressive, but I did find myself a bit exhausted by it. I wanted to see everything, but the gameplay is so thin, it did start to drag towards the end when I was going for 100%. I don't think it's fair to criticize the game too much for this, as this isn't a traditional video game with a definitive endpoint. I could have stopped much sooner and been satisfied with what I got, and if you play this for yourself, I recommend not playing it for too long at one time. It's a leisurely game that can be very enjoyable and has a lot to see, just not one that holds up entirely over the course of seeing every little detail. So that's Virtual Springfield, a game unlike any other Simpsons game. It has a strong premise, bringing you into the show by stripping back all the gameplay to simply let you see Springfield and all the characters that inhabit it. It is packed full of iconic locations, familiar characters, and there's so many specific references to the show, it would be a huge task just to catalogue them all. They found a way to create a visual style that feels correct, using the limitations of the technology from the 90s, by smartly combining a 3D world with 2D animation. The animation doesn't always look great and it can be a bit off, but this game was clearly made with a lot of love and care for the world of The Simpsons. It caters to all types of fans, to someone more casual who just wants to mess around with it for a bit, to the more hardcore, by hiding secrets and adding in more obscure references. On top of that, the writing is actually pretty good, and Virtual Springfield has the honour of having the most voice actors from the show in it, really fleshing out the characters and giving a very clear reason to check this game out. I love this game, although it does have its flaws. The navigation could have been improved, with the compass and point system being confusing, and it's easy to go the wrong way without realising. The community cards are a bit of a letdown, introducing a tedious grind rather than rewarding exploration. The gameplay being stripped back is both a positive and a negative. It's a positive as it allows you to sit back and enjoy the world of The Simpsons, but it does limit how engaging Virtual Springfield can be. It's pointing and clicking at its most basic. The item system does its job, but it doesn't really involve any real puzzles, and the minigames largely fall flat. This is a game that will bore some people, and I can't blame anyone for moving on from the game after only an hour or so. I'm going to cut to the chase for ranking Virtual Springfield, because it's going right near the top of the list. If I was ranking these games based on general playability and only as video games, Virtual Springfield is pretty weak, and I would be recommending you play Itchy and Scratchy Miniature Golf Madness over this, as that was more fun and original. However, for Simpsons fans, Virtual Springfield is a must play, thanks to its portrayal of Springfield and the amount of original Simpsons content it provides. On this alone, it goes above Cartoon Studio and Bart's Nightmare. Cartoon Studio is also filled with content, but not to the same level, and Bart's Nightmare is simply too flawed to be considered better than Virtual Springfield. That leaves us with one question: is Virtual Springfield better than The Simpsons Arcade? I had to think about this for a long time, and I even replayed The Simpsons Arcade on a live stream in order to try and answer this question. The Simpsons Arcade is incredibly charming, and it's a decent beat 'em up that could be played with 4 people. Not every level is a winner, and it can be beaten in 30 minutes with little reason to replay it. The Simpsons Arcade main appeal to me is that it's a unique take on the show, with a talented Japanese developer recreating the show in an enjoyable format through the lens of Season 1. That's really cool, and The Simpsons Arcade will always stand strong on that alone. Virtual Springfield, on the other hand, is a celebration of the golden age of the show, and in a very direct way, it gives Simpsons fans more Simpsons content. It can't compete gameplay-wise, so it's easy to disagree with me on this one, depending on what you value in a Simpsons game, but to me, Virtual Springfield is more worth your time if you love The Simpsons, so I'm putting it above The Simpsons Arcade, and we have a new number 1 in the ranking. It's not easy to access this game nowadays, but you owe it to yourself to find a way to play this and have a great afternoon checking out Springfield. When I looked at Cartoon Studio, it made sense to me that these cartoon editors would disappear due to the rise of the internet and access to actual animation tools increasing. For Virtual Springfield, it feels like we should have seen this type of game for other animated shows. Any game based on a cartoon wants you to feel like you're actually exploring the world of the cartoon, to the point where Virtual Springfield feels like it's almost cheating by letting you do that exclusively. While part of the reason that we didn't see more games like this is because point-and-click adventures declined in popularity, I also think that The Simpsons is one of the few shows to flesh out its world and characters enough to justify making a game like Virtual Springfield. Sure, something like Family Guy has been going for years, but is the idea of Virtual Quahog really all that interesting? The only game that matches Virtual Springfield in terms of depicting the world of a cartoon is South Park: The Stick of Truth, which I would ultimately say does a better job of replicating the art style of that show, and it also fleshes out the gameplay so it feels like a proper video game. Still, South Park: The Stick of Truth had the advantage of coming out much later on more powerful hardware. It's better for sure, but Virtual Springfield as a 1997 PC game is very impressive in its own right. It shows the passion for Simpsons games that a developer is allowed to have when acclaim isn't involved, and thanks to that passion, it remains a great piece of Simpsons history. And that's Virtual Springfield added to the list. Thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed this look at Virtual Springfield, please consider giving this video a like or leaving a comment below. I'll see you next time for The Simpsons Bowling. Bit strange there was a Simpsons bowling game, but after covering a cartoon editor, a Jack and the Beanstalk parody, and 2 games based on Itchy and Scratchy, nothing really surprises me more with this franchise.